discussion is the cannabis, discussion and possible vote. When we left our last meeting, I said I would talk with our attorneys relative to the possibility of a Board of Selectmen vote, which we can do, to establish policy, but the planning and zoning could still vote differently. Now, would they? I don't know. I mean, they're looking for our opinion. I don't think they would, but it's up to the commission. So it's not 100% if we vote as a policy not to do it, right?
Wait,
No.
we vote no, I thought that was it was done. I thought it was, if we vote yes, then they can decide how to do that or
If
not.
we vote no about cannabis,
Mhm.
the Planning and Zoning Commission by statute still can move forward.
Really? Okay, I didn't.
Yes.
I didn't
You're breaking up, Barbara.
understand that.
Say that again?
I said I didn't understand that.
I didn't either.
That was the process.
Well, maybe it makes sense
I'm telling
because-
you, this is the meeting I
Yeah.
had this morning. Now, I'll go to point 2. We also cannot have a referendum with an advisory question. We cannot do that.
What do you mean by advisory question?
On the ballot.
Do you feel that we should allow a dispensary, a cannabis dispensary in Ridgefield, yes or no? That's more of an opinion.
Okay.
But what we can do is, as a Board of Selectmen, we can draft an ordinance, vote on the ordinance, and then remove it from the call of a town meeting and send it to a referendum, if we wanted to do it that way with a referendum. That's number 2. Number 3 is that we could, we're almost out of time, but for the budget referendum, which is what we were originally thinking of, you would have to have a separate ballot and a separate machine that, right, a tabulating machine.
Okay.
So when you go in, you sign in, you verify your address, you get your ballot.
Your 2 forms.
You'd be given 2 ballots.
Yeah, I see.
One with the questions for cannabis, that you would go to the left or right, vice versa.
Whatever, yeah.
And then the other for the budget. So those are the 3 alternatives that we discussed this morning.
So
So,
if we
A,
vote.
we can vote, just real quick, we can vote, but planning and zoning may not recognize that or decide they're gonna go forward with a regulation, whatever that may be. Because I think in their motion, and don't quote me on this, but in speaking with them, the motion was that the Board of Selectmen consider a referendum, they didn't say.
That's right. Now that I think of it, back into those meetings I had in
Yeah.
September, I think it was, they said, we want to hear input from the Board of Selectmen. Again, I kind of took that as probably everyone else did, that, you know, they were saying, okay, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to make the decision.
They
but-
did say that. They
Yeah, yeah.
said that the Board of Selectmen is responsible for setting a policy.
Yes.
Right.
And if the Board of Selectmen says no, then that's the policy of the town. What attorneys have told me is that it does not preclude planning and zoning
Okay,
from
that's fair.
establishing an organization to do something other.
So what happened in the towns like Wilton and New Canaan and, did they, because the Board of Selectmen voted no.
Okay? The
Yeah.
same thing would exist.
It was all planning and zoning, I think, in these other
A
towns.
lot of them were planning and zoning, Bob, that voted no and established a regulation, period.
Yeah, I couldn't find a town.
Newtown.
I couldn't find a town with an ordinance that they were all planning and zoning.
Right.
And I looked, I'm just saying I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So then it's really up to planning and zoning.
It could be.
Hopefully, but they're looking for input
unless
from us. I
Yeah,
think that
they-
was,
right, as
They're
the-
looking for
right.
input for us. And
So then
I think what
plan-
they're saying is that if the Board of Selectmen voted no, we would respect your decision and go move accordingly.
So if planning and zoning, then they could say no, okay, and then the residents could get a
Petition.
petition. But that, the no has to come from planning and zoning.
ultimately, after.
Ultimately, yeah.
It sounds like it does.
I don't think they have to, if they accept I don't know if they have to vote no. I think if the Board of Selectmen establishes a policy with a no vote, they will accept that as meaning the town does not want to move forward. End of issue.
Right. I mean, that's the way I've read it so far.
Yep. And then that gives the opportunity for people to go and petition and raise the 1,700 signatures, whatever the 10% is. I think Wayne said we had 17,000 roughly registered voters now. But those are the three different courses of action we can take.
So just to be clear, oh, go ahead, Barbara.
Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, no, I'm prepared to vote no.
Okay.
Even though I was hearing it from the other side of the aisle, I think a lot of Democrats are not in favor of this.
I'd rather not have it be political,
No, I'd rather it not be either, but.
so, well, you just made it. But you're a no vote, basically, is what you're saying, right?
And I think the majority of the town would be a no vote,
Okay.
but
All right, but if we were to vote tonight, you would vote no, as a Board of Selectmen member. Thank you.
So one thing I just wanted to clarify, you said this, I assume this is definitely true. It wasn't long ago you said we could not do a referendum as part of the town budget referendum. And maybe ultimately that's still
On the
true, but I think there was something appealing about having people come when they're naturally coming in to go through, because I think what we talked about with that is, if you were gonna do it, you have to do something separate, and we know you would get very few, and that was not very appealing.
If we did a separate referendum.
If we did something separate,
But
we
with
know we
further
would not get
research, you
it, yeah.
could do, actually Cindy came up and said, what if we did a separate ballot? And I said, I have no idea.
So that's been
Legal
confirmed.
researched
Great.
it last week and came back yesterday, this morning confirmed that if we were to do it at the budget referendum, we would have to have a separate ballot.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, Barbara gave, an opinion. So my perspective is, aside from anything she said about party, I've heard people on both sides of the aisle say very strongly, on both sides, I don't think it's necessary, maybe there's a leaning one way or the other, but I don't think this is, a straight, party line vote kind of thing, where
No.
people have an opinion. I've heard very, and amazingly strong opinions, on sort of both sides, and I was just able to come to one session that we had here on a Saturday morning, which was clearly the larger one, and it was somewhat balanced. I think towards the end there was clearly more of a feeling towards no, but again there were plenty. I think I had 8 people or so who very passionately talked about the need to have it. I like the idea of a referendum. Again, when this first came up, I was leaning towards more of a no, without a whole lot of information. Talked to people, doing some research. Listening to the story of the people in Lee, Massachusetts. Again, I don't feel terribly strongly, and that's why I sort of feel like that people have opinions. Let's have it go to a referendum and let people come out and say that. I disagree with the notion, this was said earlier tonight, and it was said in the session the other day, that going to a referendum essentially says, you're supporting it. Again, people may feel that, I completely disagree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like, people have strong opinions in this town. Let's let them have their say.
So you would rather see us go to a referendum, even if it is a separate one?
Correct.
Which probably is gonna be the case, trying to get ballots printed. The one thing is, if we were to create a separate ballot, we do not have to have it approved by the Secretary of State's office,
Because it's our own,
which cuts out a lot of time.
Yep, that's great.
It's just a matter of setting up the machines and preparing for that. And we would just have one voting poll anyway, which is what we do for a referendum at Yanity. So when you walk into Yanity, you register, get your ballots, and go accordingly.
Wait, so just to be clear, you wouldn't make some of this, if I was gonna go vote, wait, so this is, of course, the budget vote, so it's just one site anyway.
No, we
Right.
have more than one site for a budget vote.
No.
Oh, we only have one site for a budget vote? That's right, we do.
That's right, yeah, I was getting, that's right.
Yeah.
And the election, we have all three,
Sure,
technically
the bigger
four,
election, but the referendum.
Two are the
Right.
same.
That is-
Yeah.
Scotts Ridge, or now they'll be at the.
I just wanted to be clear, like, I wouldn't have to go vote at Scotts Ridge and then, it's all the same site, so that's cool, yeah. So, and that's a time where Again, we wish it was a larger number, but a lot of people do come out.
What we said as a board, it would be nice to do that, because maybe we'll get more people to vote.
Precisely, yes.
Which is a sad statement in and of itself. But-
So that's where I am.
So we can vote
Look, you,
if we want, but
What do you
it's
want
up to you, what's your opinion?
I think you weren't here, but I expressed my opinion the other day. I think, I would like to see, I think the voters should vote on it. However, I think we have a responsibility as the elected representatives in this town to make the policy decision. My fear is, as you well know, we had 4 people at the first meeting, we had 8 at the second one, and we had, 20-something at the third one. A very small group of people, came, and there's a lot of information that people really need to know. So the people, my concern is if we just went to a referendum, with the budget, and just put it out there, you're gonna have a very small group of people, probably 900 or 1,000 people or so are gonna, vote, and I just don't, I think this is too.
More of you're not getting a good representative vote.
Yeah, so I think I would do a hybrid, and that is, we should vote here, and I will vote no.
Mhm.
And then, hopefully, people that, are passionate about this, they'll get the petition, and that in itself will create a lot more awareness, because they'll be out there, talking about it, or standing in front of, Stop and Shop, or wherever they're gonna get the petition signed. And I think we'll get a larger turnout that way, and it'll be more representative of, there'll be a lot of things that will go on in social media, and that's the good news and the bad news, because unfortunately on social media, there's a lot of misinformation. But,
so can I just ask one quick question?
yeah,
So are you suggesting that if we did a single issue referendum just on this, we would get a higher turnout
no.
than in a budget referendum?
And I think you'll get pretty much the same. You might get a few more people, but it won't be representative of the town.
Yeah, I would have guessed it'd be a lot less if it was just
Yeah,
on the
I
single
would think
issue.
so. Based on the turnout here,
Well,
which is
also-
your point.
Yeah. But I think people need to be educated on it and understand the impact that it's gonna have on the town.
Yeah.
And it's more than, they're gonna have accessibility to it, and I'm not taking a position
Yep,
on whether people should use it or not use it, okay? It's gonna be law. So that's not the issue, it's really the issue is, do they understand the impact of that something like this, having a retail, distribution, store in town, I just don't think a lot of people really understand all the impacts of that. And I think that, we should do whatever we can to help people, really understand it and then make a vote.
Yeah.
And I think as far as, us as the elected officials, I feel very strongly that, this has a major impact on the town, and it's something that we should vote on.
Yeah, no,
Can we, it's Maureen's turn, Barbara, if we can?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
No, I agree. I think as the policy makers of the town, I think we should take a vote on it. Again, if they wanna bring it to petition and bring it to a vote,
Mhm.
I think that's absolutely, it's their right, so that would be, and it would highlight the issue, hopefully more, and we'd get a bigger turnout, but I would vote no. That, as a policymaker, I would vote no.
Right. And I'm going now, Barb, okay?
Okay.
That, I would agree with what's been said at the table, plus a few other things. I don't think this is forever. Another board could look at something differently in 5, 10 years and say, we missed the boat on that, let's revisit it. And that could always change, and even if it's in 2 or 3 years, I don't know, but I think right now, given the place we're at personally, and I've said this, I've been very public about my feelings, is that we should not move forward with this at this time. And some of the reasons are not that, you know, I don't want it in town, I want it on Route 7, because that impacts a lot of people on Route 7 with the traffic, and you don't know what the implications could be with this and what the consequences may be of a decision like this. We do know what the consequences are if we say no. And that's what I feel safe going with. Additionally, Danbury is set up, and if you are a current medical dispensary, I think you're automatically in for a license and not part of the lottery.
Oh,
So
really?
that's what I was told, and I haven't read that yet, but.
Is that in phase one, or is that maybe phase two?
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate, wow.
Yeah, that they would be applying, and big business, I will tell you that big business is coming into Connecticut for this. That's one
Yeah,
thing I
sure.
learned today.
Right, well, I mentioned
From
that the
Pat
other day.
Sullivan. She said, let me tell you, this is big money and it's gonna be big business. And
They're gonna
from
buy
that
up all the
perspective,
lottery
I
tickets.
look at the ECTC saying, are we missing on something that could bring revenues to the town that could help support things like the Ridgefield Prevention Council and better programs that we have? But when we first started our Community Coalition Against Alcohol and Substance Abuse, it was after a young man, 21 years old, died of an overdose on Main Street, heroin overdose. And it was a shock. You know, Main Street, Ridgefield, kind of brought a sense of reality to it. And when we started, we had offers of contributions from Coors Light was willing to give us $50,000 to get up and rolling, and another organization was willing to give us $25,000, $30,000. I wish John Katz was here because he was at the table then. And we said, you know, that's kind of a contradiction, taking money from a beer company when the Ridgefield Community Coalition gets alcohol and substance abuse, and we shouldn't be going down that road. And I think we're in the same place now, that we're looking at taking money from something that we've worked so hard to try and keep our kids, especially with alcohol, I mean, the years, and it's still number one in the schools. Vaping is running a very close second, and we all know that the oils that are out there, the THC content could be crazy. I mean, it's almost an hallucinogenic drug, and you don't want your kids getting behind the wheel with that kind of stuff on the street. And I do think that a store in our community, a dispensary, would certainly allow for a greater presence of it in our town, because what we have found that many of the kids who are at that younger age are getting it from an older sibling. The experimentation in the middle school, the average age of experimentation with drugs is alcohol is around 12 years old. And we're no different than any other community in this country. That's a known fact. And it's also known that a lot of times they'll get the alcohol out of the refrigerator or dad's liquor cabinet, and they'll pour water back in the liquor. But I see that same type of behavior opening up in the community, and I think if we have an opportunity to help stop that, that we should make every effort to do so. So that's where I'm coming from. Barbara, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I started out by saying I'm a no vote because I think we have a moral responsibility at the Board of Selectmen to express how we feel it would impact the town. I don't think there are many of us, maybe there are some of us, who are opposed to the use of marijuana in people's homes, privately or whatever. But in terms of going into the business of it, and having it as a presence on our main street when the kids are coming out of school on a Friday afternoon and coming down Main Street, Rudy, you're right. It's everything we fought against in terms of, it's one thing if you want to do something personally in your own home.
And the law allows for that. We can't stop that.
Law allows for it. You know, I was looking today at an old Facebook posting that came up. I was in Las Vegas, I guess, 3 years ago, smoking in our streets and stuff like that. If people want to smoke in their homes, they can buy it in Danbury and they can bring it home with them.
They can have it delivered.
They can deliver it, right.
We can't stop the transport.
No, we can't stop the transport and we can't stop people driving through who are intoxicated by it. I mean, that's a danger that's gonna arise, but we don't have to encourage it.
Okay. So I would ask that the motion, whoever makes it, include this as a vote on the policy by the Board of Selectmen, and that our policy decision be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission accordingly at their request, as requested, right? Does that sound okay?
And just, I know that when we looked at the referendum questions, there were quite a number of questions that would have had to be listed on the ballot. No retail, no distribution, no.
There's 9, but there's also something I downloaded and I counted, there were 14
Right, so
different
does that,
categories.
does our motion have to encompass all of those points?
We're opting out.
That, oh, so we are opting out, so
We're
we
opting
don't
out.
have to list it at all? Okay,
Right.
got it, okay,
100%.
great, okay.
It's a policy, period.
Okay, great.
So I'll be happy to make the motion.
Okay, and that motion is?
You just said it.
To opt
To
out.
opt out
To
of
opt
the
out.
participation, I guess?
To opt out of cannabis dispensary including all other categories.
Related?
Hmm?
All other categories, just
All other
period?
categories, yeah.
Okay.
In the town of Ridgefield, right?
Yeah. I'll second it. Unless you want to second
Yeah. I'm gonna vote in favor of it, so.
It's an affirmative no.
Hmm?
it.
It's
Right,
an affirmative no.
exactly.
So the motion would be to opt out of cannabis dispensary, sale of, I didn't write this correctly, I was thinking, but it didn't come out right. To
Didn't come
opt
out
of
right.
Cannabis.
You're right.
To opt out of a cannabis dispensary, including all other categories.
Do you wanna say something opt out of it? It's like the state.
Or, you know what, why don't we just have the motion be that the Ridgefield Board of Selectmen hereby establishes a policy not to allow any form of cannabis to be legally,
Any form of cannabis business, is what you're saying, right?
business to be established in the town of Ridgefield.
That's what they were trying to get to.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's, yeah, no, that's exactly right, business.
Okay, well, we've got it recorded, so that's good. I can take it off the tape for the minutes.
Okay.
So we have a motion,
A second.
Barbara, seconded by Maureen. Any questions from the public? Mr. Porter?
I would just like to say thank you to the board for taking the responsibility for this action. I know this is a fraught issue that with lots and lots of perspectives on all sides, but I think we've done the right thing by choosing to take a vote by the board on behalf of the town as our elected representatives. And if there is the groundswell of desire to implement this, then the democratic process of petitioning the government for redress can be followed. So I would just like to say thank you for your statements tonight.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to reiterate that the,
Lori Norwood?
sorry, Lori Connelly. I'd just like to reiterate that the ECDC strongly believes it should go to referendum. I think a lot of concerns raised go back to the fact that there is a state law, that this is legal, and the fact that people can buy it in Danbury or buy it elsewhere. We aren't preventing this in our town in any way. It's still going to be here, that issue has been finalized, and the fact that, you know, we could have controlled sales, controlled growth in an area that we wanted. It's, you know, the ECDC is told to look at economic benefits, and this is an economic benefit, and so we feel a referendum would be appropriate.
Thank you, appreciate that. So we have a motion made and seconded. Any further public comment? Mr. Cannelly.
Thanks for not mixing it up with the budget referendum, that's confusing enough. And at least maybe it could stand on its own merit if we ever get there, which I hope we don't, quite frankly. But I do want to see us get out of our budget in a couple of weeks. Okay, so thanks.
Thanks. Okay, if there's no further
Well,
public.
I'll just add I'd like to say
Mr.
thank.
Carr?
Yeah, I'd like, Kurt Carr, 62 Prospect Ridge. I'd like to add my thanks. One thing that hasn't been discussed, and that is the possibility of an ordinance that would prohibit the public consumption of cannabis and, in any public place, or the possession on town property. I think those are things that you could do as an ordinance. And I think talking to what Ms. Manners talked about in Las Vegas, yes, it is legal here, but it shouldn't be something that we permit publicly. And I think you can have an ordinance to stop that.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point, because we don't allow cigarette smoking on public property within so many feet of a public entrance, et cetera, so I would hope that this, and I haven't read it, maybe there's a section in the bill that allows that, but I don't think so. So maybe we can look at it from an ordinance perspective.
Yeah, I think anything that applies with cigarette smoking, we'd certainly want to apply.
Right.
You know, at the very least,
Right.
to this.
Okay. If there's no further comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Nays? One nay. Motion carries.
And I just want to reinforce, like, so my nay is not a forceful yes, my nay, as I was saying before, is a strong belief that it should go to referendum.
Okay. Got it, thanks. It'll be recorded as you have stated.